Pag-usapan natin itong isa o sentro po ng diskusyon itong nakalipas po na linggo mga kapartner. Ito pong may kaugnayan po doon sa Bukana Bridge na kanino ba talaga dapat, no? Yung tinatawag na legasiya. Marami kasing tumaas yung kilay matapos ng banggitin ng kasalukuyang administrasyon na parte ng kanilang legasiya. Ito nga pong Bukana Project. At marami pang mga issue po dyan considering ang nagpondo po nitong proyekto na ito ay ang China. Makakasama po natin si Professor Ana Malindog-Uy, isang geopolitical analyst. Prof, maupay na gabi. Admar Vilando ang inyo pong makakasama ngayong Lunes ng gabi.
Maupay nga gabi, Admar. Hindi ka solo flight, kasama mo ako.
Oo, tama. Solo lang ako dito sa studio. Pero eto po, Prof, no? Na-establish na natin kasi even before pa nagsalita ang pangalawang Pangulo, Vice President Sara Duterte, lumabas na yung mga videos, yung mga luma, 2018, plano na nito. Kasi maraming parte lang ito sa plano dyan po sa Davao City, yung Coastal Road, Bypass Road, konektado ito, parte ito, no? So, na-establish na yan, na naisip or naiplano na way back panahon pa ng Vice President, Mayor pa siya noon. In fact, noong 2023 sa inauguration ng Coastal Road, binigyan siya ng pagkilala. In good terms pa sila noon, ng Presidente Bongbong Marcos. Kinilala rin ang efforts ni former President Rodrigo Duterte. Pero dito tayo sa mga umuusbong na mga issue na kumakalat din sa social media, lalo na-establish na ito ay walang pondo na ginamit ang local government ng Davao City, ang national government, ito ay pondo galing po sa China. Nung lumabas din yung issue na ang kapalit niyan, ito pong West Philippine Sea, pampapogi lang yan ng China dahil sa West Philippine Sea. Ano pong pagkakaalam niyo po dito? Ito ba'y bukod tanging nagaganap lang sa Pilipinas, China sa pagtulong sa Pilipinas? Or China sa iba pang mga bansa? Or ibang bansa sa iba pang mga bansa?
Okay. Magbutit ng tanong mo yan kasi sobrang tawag nito, stretch naman yung mga ganyang klaseng opinion or di kaya mga sinasabi ng iba dyan. Unang-una, gusto ko lang linawin, yung Bukana Bridge ay isa yan sa 3 na gifts, kumbaga regalo ng China sa Pilipinas, meaning hindi siya loan. It is, grant. So, ibig sabihin, pera ng China ang ginamit dyan. Tatlong tulay. Pero ito yung pinaka-controversial na Bukana Bridge sa Davao kasi ang nangyari dyan, parang sinasabi ni BBM na legacy niya or one of his legacy sa infrastructure, which is nagre-react syempre ang mga tao. Kasi alam naman natin na noong 2018 yan, at the same time 2020, nagkaroon, parang na-approve na yung funding dyan, at saka yung mga negotiation nangyari during the time of President Duterte, at saka during the time of the Vice President as Mayor of Davao City. So may mga may mga debate na hindi yan legacy per se ni President Marcos Jr., but it's more of a legacy, part ng legacy ng tinatawag mong Build program ng Duterte administration, na yun ang tinatawag natin before, yun ang tinatawag talaga natin na golden age of infrastructure. Nagsulat ako niyan ng maraming article published in ASEAN Post. So hindi pwedeng i-claim ni BBM yan. Kung ako kay President Marcos Jr., I think he should have his own legacy. Siguro gumawa siya ng sarili niyang mga infrastructure project na matatawag niyang legacy. Hindi yung tipong, parang ang nangyari kasi kay BBM, parang credit grabbing yan in many ways or in many respects. On the other hand, ang sinasabi nila, parang in exchange for yung tinatawag nating dispute dyan sa South China Sea, that is not really true. Actually, ang China is a big investor, it's a big financer when you talk about infrastructure projects in different parts of the world, especially sa tinatawag mong Global South. Ito yung developing countries. Even across Southeast Asia, ang pinakamalaking pumupondo pagdating ng mga infrastructure project, both physical infrastructure and soft infrastructure. Soft infrastructure meaning yung digital infrastructure ay ang China. So actually, ang Pilipinas ang may pinakamababa at this time when you talk about financing ng China sa infrastructure project, especially under BBM administration. Kung titignan mo ang Africa, titignan mo ang Latin America, at titignan mo ang Asia, ang kabuuan ng Asia, ang pinakamalaki na funder when you talk about infrastructure project, especially when you talk about railways, bridge, ports, and even like mga digital infrastructure, yung mga pang-satellite and all that, ay ang China. Kasi ang China, to be very honest and frank, objectively speaking, is the best when you talk about infrastructure project in the world, not even the United States. If you look at the United States, mga train station nila, mga luma, yung mga bridges nila luma. But if you go to China, and if you see China's infrastructure, China's railway, Chinese ports, it's really amazing. It's one top of the world, as in, I'm not kidding. So when you talk about investment in other countries, pagdating sa infrastructure, China is leading. And they are very good at this. Kaya nga may tinatawag kang Belt and Road Initiative or BRI. Basically, ang BRI is a Belt and Road Initiative. It's a grand project of China that basically focus on infrastructure investment in many parts of the world. And usually, itong BRI, ang encompassing ito is most continents from Asia, Latin America, even Europe sa eastern part of Europe and in Africa. Makikita mo ang mga infrastructure project dyan na big time infrastructure project ay galing China under the so-called BRI or Belt and Road Initiative. Opo. Na land sa ano yan sa land la kasi may BRI ka na tinatawag mong Silk Road. Andyan na yun siya.
Opo. Prof, yung sa BRI, kumbaga tumutulong ang China. Siyempre, kasi sa pagtulong niya sa mga bansa, yung beneficiary, siyempre, makakabenepisyo yung bansang beneficiary. And at the same time, meron din siyang benefit sa China kasi possible din na itong mga bansang tinutulungan niya, makikipagkalakalan din siya at para hindi na rin siya mahirapan, tuloy-tuloy, maganda ang ugnayan. Pero maaring masamain pa rin yan ng ibang mga kritiko nga. Kaya nga tinutulungan yung China kasi merong dispute dyan para makalimutan na natin yung West Philippine Sea. Ganun pa rin yung motibo. Pero meron bang ibang mga bansa na gumagawa rin ng ganito? Kung hindi man full grant, at least mga soft loans, mabababa na mga interest na makakatulong sa atin. Pero sure ka na matibay, pulido yung infrastructure at magagamit natin?
So far at this time, to be very honest, when you really talk about infrastructure project, and that is like for example itong hard infrastructure, physical infrastructure, na ang number one talaga sa mundo is China. Other countries are not as at par. Even Japan is not at par with China when you talk about these things kasi mas mahal ang kanilang construction. Though ang kanilang sinasabi na mas mura daw ang mag-loan sa Japan. Pero actually, if you really analyze things, pag dumating ka na sa construction, sa proseso ng construction, sa pagbili ng mga materials for the construction, I think it's still expensive even if from Japan investment. So, it's really China. And in terms of may pinakamalaking pondo, when you talk about these things, I think it's China, number one at the moment. So, other countries, because look at the country right now. Like for example, look at the Philippines right now. Ano ba yung country na talagang nagpupondo pagdating sa infrastructure programs or infrastructure projects sa Pilipinas? Since ang China nag-mellow down, ano ba ang under BBM, mayroon ba siya talagang big ticket infrastructure project na nasimulan, na negotiate under his administration na ngayon matatawag yung legacy, na funded by other countries like for example Japan or the United States? I don't think so. I really don't think so. So, ang Belt and Road Initiative, ito yung, at saka gusto ko lang i-address, no, yung sinasabi na, ang tawag nito, kaya ang China nagbibigay ng mga infrastructure or nagpapaloan or nagbibigay ng grant when you talk about infrastructure projects sa Pilipinas, para in exchange to the dispute of the South China Sea, para hindi natin i-claim ang ating claim. That is really wrong assumption, precisely because even if China will give us the investment in terms of infrastructure, or even if will give loan or grant sa infrastructure project natin, bibigyan tayo o hindi, they would always be a dispute in the South China Sea. Hindi yan mawawala ang dispute kasi ang dispute sa South China Sea is a separate matter. It's like it's more on security and geopolitics to a greater extent. And of course, it's all about sovereignty and sovereign rights. Dapat hiwalay yan when you talk about cooperation. Kasi when you talk about Belt and Road Initiative, when you talk about infrastructure investment sa Pilipinas ng China, let us say, ibang dimension yan, cooperation yan. Kaya nga nung panahon ni Duterte, ni Pangulong Duterte, malinaw ang kanyang foreign policy. We will cooperate with China on areas that there is a need for cooperation, and there's already cooperation. Like for example, infrastructure project. Pero isi-separate natin ang pag-deal when you talk about the South China Sea dispute kasi it's a different matter, it's a different dimension. Kaya malinaw yon. Pero itong panahon ni BBM, nagkaletse-letse na. Kasi lahat nilamplap na nila, kaya nagkagulo-gulo. So, ngayon, hindi tayo nagbe-benefit. Ang other countries in ASEAN are benefiting from infrastructure project, and we are not even part of the Belt and Road Initiative, I think.
Opo.
As far as I'm concerned.
Nag-search tayo dito, maliban sa China na malimit din na magbigay ng full grant. Kumbaga, sila talaga yung magpopondo.
Oh, number one sila.
Meron din ang Estados Unidos, itong USAID nila. Pero merong mga kondisyon yan, dapat may good governance, transparency, at syempre BFF ka ng ng China, ng US, no? So meron din silang pinupondohan na tulay, kalsada at iba pang mga infrastructure. Nandyan din yung nababanggit natin kanina na Japan, pero sa kanila most likely pautang, no? Kumbaga kung walang budget ka, pwede kang umutang. Which is sikat yung JICA, 'di ba? Japan International Cooperation Agency, nandiyan yung mga tulay, subway, marami tayong mga projects with Japan din. Ang South Korea, yung tinatawag na KOICA, meron din sila mga pure grants. Meron din sa Germany, nagagrant din sila ng grant at saka soft loans. Meron din sa European Union, meron din sila mga malalaking grants, pati yung Australia, Saudi Arabia. So maraming mga bansa. So kung iisipin, halimbawa, ng mga kritiko dito sa China, kung iisipin natin itong ganitong klaseng logic, edi dapat i-apply din natin dito. Bakit tayo tinutulungan? Kasi siguro meron niyang interest sa atin. Prof, masasabi mo?
Ang tawag nito, yun na nga ang sinasabi ko kasi masyadong colored mag-isip yung iba nating mga kababayan na para bang lahat na lang inuugnay nila dun sa dispute. Itong mga bansang to, they also have this kind of what you call investment dimension or what you call track. However, kung titignan mo ang Pilipinas, very minimal ang may kinalaman sa hard infrastructure na funded by these countries. Like for example, Saudi Arabia, even European countries or EU, even the United States. It's really not there kasi they are not expert on these things. Itong mga countries na to, they are not really expert or they don't have that solid experience in hard infrastructure. It's really China that is number one at the moment. On the other hand, ang mahirap naman kasi sa mga tulad ng Amerika, when they extend investment to the country, like for example the Philippines, may strings attached yan. And usually, ang strings attached niyan is may kinalaman sa control, sa political influence, sa political dynamics ng isang bansa tulad ng Pilipinas. Kaya nga, di ba, may may mga condition and concession. Dapat may mga listahan yan i-check mo yung box na good governance kuno, democracy promotion kuno. It's very ideological. Kasi ganun ang nila, ang extension kasi ng United States when you talk about investment, may it be infrastructure and other kind of investment. Ang exchanges kasi dyan, they should have a control and influence on the political dynamics of a country. On the other hand, it's what you call democracy promotion. Yung kanilang konsepto ng what is democracy as far as America is concerned is i-export nila dyan sa isang bansa dahil nagbibigay sila ng aid. That's really how the United States work. Ang China, it's a business. It's a pure business deal. Pag sinabi ng China, okay, we give you a loan because you need a loan on this, you deal with China in a business manner. O ito yung loan nyo, ito yung atin repayments, ito yung interest, magbayad tayo, wala nang string attached dyan. Basta business to business lang yan. That
Opo.
is the difference though.
Opo.
Malaki ang diferensya.
Oo, kumbaga sa kasalukuyan medyo pangit talaga yung relasyon natin with China. Pero sa tingin niyo po bakit walang pumapalit? Kasi most likely yung China talaga yung isa sa mga hindi siguro number one natin na partner sa trade, katuwang natin, at dahil nga na demonize, pangit yung ating relasyon dahil nga diyan sa issue ng South China Sea at iba pang mga issue. Bakit kaya walang mga bansa, lalong-lalo na yung BFF natin, na pumalit dito sa naging role ng China or naging kumbaga relasyon natin with China na mahilig yung sa trade natin? Bakit hindi pinalitan or kaya bang palitan ng US or may pumipigil ba sa kanila kasi halimbawa para at least sure talaga na o sige ayun na namin sa China, US, kayo ang pumalit, kayo yung magbigay kasi sinisiraan nyo ang China, sige nga magpakitang gilas kayo. Bakit kaya walang ganun na effort na ang nilalagay lang dito EDCA lang?
Oo, kasi unang-una ang tingin naman talaga ng ang tingin ng United States sa Pilipinas is not necessarily a partner. It's not really. It's ang tingin kasi ng yun yung sinasabi ko lagi. The Filipino people has to really wake up and open their minds to the truth and to the reality na ang tingin ng United States sa Pilipinas is not even a partner country. It is a vassal state as far as the United States is concerned. So as a vassal state, ang kanyang tingin, saan ba ako pwedeng magbigay ng pera na it will benefit me, not necessarily the Philippines. And that is defense and military. Precisely because it's not necessarily Philippine defense. It's actually for the strategic interest nga ng United States when you talk about the Indo-Pacific or the Asia-Pacific region. Yun yung tingin talaga ng United States sa atin. So look, saan ba nilalagay ng United States ang pera niya when you talk about so-called aid? It's always on defense and military. And saan yan pupunta? Pumupunta yan sa pag-i-improve ng kanilang mga military installations sa Pilipinas. Ang tanong, sino bang nagbe-benefit sa improvement ng military installation nila? Is it the Philippines really? No, of course not. It's the United States. Kasi yung mga yan, it's not for Philippine defense. It's actually will be used by the United States against its adversary, which is ang perceived adversary niya is China. May it be in a military escalation in the Taiwan Strait. It's more the Taiwan Strait actually, not necessarily a flashpoint din naman ang South China Sea, pero ang tingin ko dyan is more on the Taiwan. So ito yun, ito naman talaga ang totoo dyan. So at saka the second point also, ang United States is not good when you talk about they're not really that effective or they don't have the capacity or the competence when you talk about infrastructure project or hard infrastructure project. So hindi rin yan sila gagalaw na okay, mag-i-invest sila ng halimbawa big road project for the Philippines precisely because they don't have the expertise on it. So isa din yan. At saka, if you look at the United States, hindi rin yan mag-i-invest sa isang country kung hindi nila alam na sigurista hindi nila alam magbe-benefit sila or makukuha sila. So, ang tingin naman kasi talaga nila sa Pilipinas is not a viable country, it's a viable state. They even criticize the Philippines how many times when you talk about massive corruption in government, and they even actually ask their business sector, even their citizens, na mag-ingat pagpunta sa Pilipinas dahil sa maraming, nung una, kidnapping. Ngayon, ang massive corruption in government, ang pinaflag nila. So, alam mo yon. So, yun, minsan hindi ko nga maintindihan. Ano ba talaga ang United States sa Pilipinas? Best friend ba natin yan o hindi? Kasi even in infrastructure, inaway ni BBM ang China right now. Dapat, ang United States, since yun ang best friend ni BBM, should at least replace kung ano ang nawala na mga investment, especially trade, especially infrastructure project, kay sa atin sa Pilipinas. Dapat iudyok niya ang United States na, oy, punduhan mo itong bridge na to, oy, bigyan mo kami ng malaking auditorium dyan, oy, ganito yung namin, port, kayo ang bahala dyan, oy, yung trade namin, wag nyo na kami bigyan ng tariff dyan. Kasi best friend tayo, pero hindi magawa ni BBM yan Precisely because ang tingin talaga sa Pilipinas in entirety ng United States, it's not really a partner. It's a proxy or a vassal state of the United States. That's really the truth.
Apo.
So, 'di ba? Ang problema ng ating mga kababayan, Admar, hindi pa rin nila maibukas ang kanilang paningin sa realidad. So kailan pa kayo magwi-wake up pag wala na?
Opo.
Talagang nag-ano na tayo. Babalik tayo sa ano,
Prof,
sa saysayan ng ano ng Pilipinas na
opo.
colonized tayo ng Amerika. Ganun.
Napag-uusapan po itong Amerika. Di ko lang alam kung nabasa nyo na po ba yung panibagong ano nila, yung inilabas nila na National Security Strategy.
National Security.
Opo. Kung saan, marami ang siguro nagtaka dahil iba yung nakalathala doon sa usual, no? Kumbaga, mas nakatutok na daw, as per doon sa NSS ng Estados Unidos, sa kanilang seguridad panloob at panlabas sa mga susunod na taon. Pagbabago daw ng focus ng US foreign policy na yung mantra ni President Donald Trump na Make America Great Again, nakatutok na doon. Kumbaga sa interest ng Estados Unidos, yung America First, doon nakatuon, no? Pati na rin yung sa kanilang pagpapalago ng kanilang ekonomiya, yung kanilang manufacturing, kasi alam naman natin yung mga western na mga company, meron talaga yan silang mga manufacturing dito sa Asia, which is nandyan din sa China, sa mga kapitbahay natin dito sa Southeast Asia, no? Kaya nga medyo naghihigpit si di ba? President Donald Trump na bumalik sa amin para walang tax or mababang tax yung mga galing diyan, tataasan ng tax. And meron ding sinasabi na magiging limitado niya ang engagement daw niya sa ibang mga lugar kasi yung ibang mga bansa rin nakatutok na rin sa pagpapaigting ng kanilang depensa at hindi lang umaasa sa Estados Unidos. Sabi, hindi na raw sila magiging policeman sa sanlibutan ang Estados Unidos. Nakikita nyo po ba na masusunod itong tahak or ginagawa na ba ito ni US President Donald Trump kung ikukumpara natin sa mga nakalipas na administrasyon nila?
Magandang tanong yan at maganda yung pag-usapan. Actually, this coming Saturday, I will write something sa column ko sa Manila Times. Every Saturday is lumalabas. I will write something on the national security strategy of the United States. Nakalalabas lang. Binasa ko na siya, nire-review ko ulit para tignan yung finer points and how it relates to the Philippine situation. Kasi we're an ally of the United States, militarily speaking. At kung titignan mo, ang national security strategy, walang na-mention na Pilipinas doon. Imagine that. Hindi na-mention ang Pilipinas doon, pero na-mention doon is Taiwan and China. So ngayon, ang sinasabi mo, medyo nagkakaroon ng recalibration ang tinatawag mong national strategy or security strategy ng United States, especially when you talk about foreign policy. I think sa panahon ni Trump, kasi nga si Trump is transactional. Ang focus talaga ni Trump is more on economics. And yun, economics in a sense na how to make America great again, in a sense na mas dumami pa yung pera nila, mas lumakas sila sa economy. It's also not too much, I think, on what you call ideological competition with China in terms of ideology like democracy as against to communism or socialism. Hindi ganoon ang focus ni Trump. Ang focus niya talaga is make America great again in a sense of trade and economics. So kaya nga nakafocus siya doon. When you talk about financing, kaya nga ngayon may nabasa ako, proposal, ang dating, kaibigan pa rin naman ata ni Trump yung may-ari ng X, na sinasabi nga dapat ma-dissolve na ang NATO or ma-dissolve ang EU precisely because ang countries ng EU at saka yung NATO parehas lang and the United States is subsidizing funding for EU. Kaya nga sinasabi niya, 'di ba? Sa Ukraine crisis, sinasabi ni Trump, kayo, European countries, nasa Europe ang Ukraine crisis, kayo ang mag-finance niyan. Kayo na ang mag-finance niyan sa military, hindi kami kasi hindi naman namin kontinente yan. Even when you talk about the EDCA bases in the Philippines, kung makikita mo, di ba may 9 EDCA bases, at that is military bases of the United States. These are bases that actually, if in any case, sana wag naman mangyari sa panahon natin or kahit kailan, na magkaroon ng encounter or military escalation dyan sa Taiwan Strait, these military bases will be used by the United States in aid of Taiwan. So ngayon, ang sinasabi ni United States, sabi niya, Taiwan, you finance the EDCA bases in the Philippines. You see? Because I don't think Trump wants to spend money on too much of stretching itself when you talk about financing defense or financing military. I don't think Trump is interested in that. Kasi ang tingin ko kay Trump wants to have more money, more resources coming into the United States rather than going out. Businessman siya eh. You have to remember again that Trump is a businessman. So, hindi yan gagastos at ayaw niyang gumastos na wala naman siyang profit dyan. So, ang gusto niya, mas maraming papasok sa United States na resources rather than going out, na lalabas. So, ganun siya. So, when you talk about military and military financing, ngayon, makikita mo, naglilimit siya. Nililimit niya. Even yung Ukraine financing, hindi na eh. Ayaw na nga niyang i-finance yung Ukraine na yan eh. Kaya lang, problema nila yan kasi inumpisahan yan nung panahon, nung kanyang predecessor. Sino ba yun? Si Biden. So, in a way, responsibilidad ng Amerika yan. But they're really trying their best even to come up with a peace deal with Russia. But still, nahihirapan sila kasi si Zelensky ayaw pumayag dun sa peace deal na prepare ni na Trump and even pinag-usapan with President Putin. So, makikita mo, may recalibration ng tinatawag mong security strategy ng United States, and even when you talk about foreign policy ng United States under a Trump administration. But we have to take note, this is under Trump. And if you look at Trump stay in office, it will only last for 2 years more, I think. Roughly 2 years more. Mga 2 years na lang ata. And after that, we don't know who will be the next president of the United States. And we don't know also if this national security strategy of the United States will be revised or will change depending on who will be the next president of the US. Pero under Trump administration, I can sense and I can see by studying it and trying, not only hindi lang ito yung national security strategy ang dapat i-review eh. Ni-review ko rin yung RAND Corporation new publication when you talk about advice sa China and even advice to the United States how to position the US, the United States when you talk about geopolitics. Na sinasabi nga nila there should be a United States and China should coexist. Iwasan ang gulo or iwasan na magkaroon ng military escalation. So makikita mo na under a Trump administration may effort si Trump na ibaba ang level ng tension when you talk about geopolitics. And one thing that you have to remember, Trump is actually going to visit China by next year around April. And after Trump visit to China, I think President Xi Jinping, it's Trump who announced, will also visit the United States. So makikita mo may recalibration in terms of foreign policy approach ang Trump administration towards China and even towards Russia. Makikita mo yan. Kasi Trump is really trying to have an understanding with Russia when you talk about the Ukraine crisis. Pero mahirap, it's not an easy, and I understand his position, and I understand that it's not an easy thing when it comes to the Ukraine crisis kasi hindi cooperative si Zelensky. So yun. Pero ang alam mo Admar, ang pinaka noticeable dun sa national security strategy ng United States na nilabas nila ngayong week na lang, last week lang ata yan ay walang na-mention na Pilipinas doon. If you review, there's no mention of the Philippines. There was a mention of Taiwan because I think Taiwan is a concern dahil nga in relation to China, but there was no mention of the Philippines given na we're supposed to be, we're an ally and also we're being used as a proxy. But parang hindi tayo nagmamatter as far as Trump administration is concerned when you talk about security and when you talk about foreign policy. Really true, 'di ba? Sabi ko nga, oh my God, hindi kami na-mention.
Pero ito bang kanilang strategy? Ito ba yung ginawa din ng China na nakafocus sa kanila?
Oo, kasi ngayon if you look at 'di ba sabi mo nga kanina Admar na from the national from this document na national security strategy, siya inward so ibig sabihin papasok kung anong magbe-benefit sa kanila as a domestic economy and as a state, hindi palabas. The same way with China I think has a dual track strategy. It wants to have it's I think from my understanding of China's strategy is it has an opening. It opens up as a country to the rest of the world, but it's more about trade. So gusto niyang mag-open up para mag-attract siya ng investors coming from outside, and also it opens up by also extending itself in terms of trade and in terms of investment. So makikita mo intensified ang trade relationship ng China with the rest of the world. Actually ngayon lang nabasa ko na China's trade surpass its expectation, at saka yung kanilang trade surplus is more than expectation na $1 trillion. So ibig mong sabihin may opening up siya in terms of economics and trade. However, ang focus din ng China is inward. Ibig sabihin inward, palakasin ang kanyang domestic economy, especially when you talk about domestic consumption. Kasi the last few years, China's domestic consumption is medyo slow and weakened. And it's precisely because of the COVID-19. So ang impact ng COVID-19, nadadrag pa until now. Pero right now, they're really focused on trying to boost domestic consumption because it will benefit. Pag may domestic consumption ka, ibig sabihin yung economy mo gumagalaw. Yung mga tao mo nag-spend ng pera. So yun yung isa sa mga focus ng China. So ang focus ng China is inward din. Palakasin ang sarili niyang ekonomiya at ang iba't ibang sektor ng kanyang ekonomiya. At ang focus din nila, I think, is to strengthen yung tinatawag mong rural, yung mga, kasi di ba may urban and rural ka. So gusto ng China na itong urban and rural, yung gap nila mawala at umunlad din yung mga areas ng China na hindi pa ganun ka well-developed or economically speaking. So may ganun siyang trajectory, which is the same trajectory kung titignan mo ang strategy ni Trump na inward-looking din. So in a way, naiintindihan ko si Trump kung bakit siya nagpe-pressure sa mga countries na, invest in my country. If you invest in my country, hindi na kita bibigyan ng tariff. Basta nandito kayo sa bansa ko, pumunta kayo dito, bibigyan ko kayo ng lahat ng incentive if you transfer to my country and invest in my country. So may ganun din si Trump na strategy. Because nga, ang sabi nga niya, make America great again. Pero I think make America great again is more on the economic and the trade part. Na magkaroon ng maraming pera, yung kanilang deficit, kasi may deficit din, malaki din utang ng ng Amerika to a greater extent. So ganoon ang strategy. So if you look at the two superpowers, may ganoon silang focus. More on inward looking ang approach. Though of course there is a foreign policy na relating with other countries, pero ang emphasis talaga is inward, na palakasin ang sarili-sarili nilang mga domestic domestic economy, much more the economy, I think. So ganun nga, tama nga.
Ang titulo nga dito sa, yung subtitle nga dito sa part, patungkol dito sa strategy nila sa Asia is, sa page 23, Asia, win the economic future, prevent military confrontation. Kumbaga, aminado sila na naungusan talaga sila ng China sa mahabang panahon. Nakalagay kasi dito, President Trump single-handedly reversed more than 3 decades of mistaken American assumptions about China. Ito yung mga dati. Namely, that by opening our markets to China, encouraging American business to invest in China, and outsourcing our manufacturing to China would facilitate China's entry into the so-called rules-based international order. This did not happen. China get rich and powerful. Sumatotal dito, aminado sila na naungusan sila in terms of dito nga dahil nagkaroon ng imbalance daw doon sa, kaya nga 'di ba nagkaroon sila ng yung sa tariff, nagkaroon sila ng discussion with China. And yung sa military military confrontation, ililesen daw nila. Nabanggit din dito, halimbawa dito, deterring military threats in the long term, maintaining American economic and technological preeminence is the surest way to deter and prevent a large-scale military conflict.
Yes.
Kumbaga, kabaliktaran ito sa nakalipas na polisiya, Prof, dun sa previous administration.
Yes, yeah.
Kasi parang nakatutok doon sa 'di ba, yung sa mga tungkol sa military, magbebenta tayo na magbebenta sila pala, hindi pala tayo. Magbebenta sila. Ngayon, ang tingin nila pag pinalakas nila yung kanilang economic and technological kumbaga palakasin nila ito, nakikita nila na maiiwasan yung large scale malakihan ng mga military conflict, Prof. Kakayanin ba ito sa natitirang panahon ng ng Trump administration kasi alam naman natin na sa mahabang panahon yung ibang Democrats ang laging nananalo. Hindi natin alam kung anong after nitong pamumuno ni Trump, kung ganito pa rin ba yung kanilang magiging strategy.
Yun na nga yung sinasabi ko kasi na-interview din ako sa isang US-based na media program. Ang tinatanong din ako ng same question sa'yo. Sabi ko, nagjo-joke nga ako dun sa anchor, sabi ko, let's just be happy at the moment that we don't need to face what you call military escalation or challenges related to defense and military in the Indo-Pacific kasi it's Trump. At least Trump is more focused on trade war rather than on hot war. Pero ang tanong kasi dyan, may ang ano kasi ang term of office ni Trump would only, yun nga sabi ko, matagal na ata ang 2 years at then magkakaroon sila ng election ulit. So it depends really kung sino ang susunod na presidente. I just hope na yung susunod nilang magiging presidente would see the wisdom behind the recalibration of Trump foreign policy and even defense and security strategy because it would really benefit the United States. I think Trump is wise enough, and I think also Trump to a greater extent kasi ano siya businessman, nakikita niya na for the last 50 years, 40 years na America was waging wars across Middle East and even different parts of the world, na sila ang nagpa-finance, na ang kanilang economy crippled kasi hindi nila na-improve ang kanilang infrastructure. Ang daming improvement at ang daming mga bagay na hindi nakita, and even their military is left behind. Totoo, yung kanilang military assets, they are not at par with China when you talk about technological capability, even in defense and military. Mas advanced ang China on that. That's why, ang nakikita mo dun sa kanilang national strategy ng United, sinasabi nila, they will also focus on improving the technology, and especially may kinalaman sa halimbawa, AI and even yung mga mga satellite or even improving the military assets kasi talagang na left behind talaga sila. So but if you do that, you need money for it. Hindi mo naman ma-improve ang military mo as a country kung wala kang pera. Kaya nga si Trump, 'di ba? Ang kanyang focus is to get more money for the United States for him to be able to, finance the different needs of the United States, especially the military side, and even economics, and even infrastructure. Kasi kung pupunta ka ng United States, my goodness, karamihan ng infrastructure nila is luma at hindi na functional. Even in New York, the train is so dirty and is not really at state of the art. It's luma. So kaya nga, ang ngayon, makikita mo na may ganong trajectory. Pero ang tanong mo kasi, magbabago ba itong trajectory at na gustong gawin ni Trump at ngayon tinatry niya talagang gawin after his term? Yun ang pinaka magandang tanong kasi we don't know kung sino ang mananalo, if it's a Republican pa rin na parehas ang vision kay Trump, or is it a Democrat na medyo ideological at mahilig sa confrontation at mahilig dito sa mga Cold War dynamics. So yun yung kailangan natin bantayan, especially the Philippines kasi magpapalit din tayo ng liderato I would assume that we will have what you call national election in 2028. So in a way, pag nagpalit ka ng liderato, kailangan mo tignan ang mga movements, yung susunod na leader, kailangan niyang tignan ang movements ng mga partners niya, including China and the United States. Kasi ito yung biggest partner mo, ito yung superpowers
Opo.
Na you have relations. So yun yung sinasabi ko, very crucial for the Philippines as well to see na after Trump, sino ang susunod na presidente ng United States at ano ang kanilang foreign policy. Kasi dapat, titignan natin yun para alam natin kung paano tayo puposisyon. Yun.
Prof, eto, basahin ko lang yung mga kataga din dito, no. Ito, malapit na to sa Pilipinas. Di na-mention yung Pilipinas pero malapit kasi nasa South China Sea. Ito, ang sabi nila, given that 1/3 of global shipping passes annually through the South China Sea, gusto nila, West Philippine Sea, this has major implications for the U.S. economy. Hence, deterring a conflict over Taiwan, ideally by preserving military overmatch, is a priority. We will also maintain our long-standing declaration policy on Taiwan, meaning the United States does not support any unilateral change to the status quo in the Taiwan Strait. So kumbaga sila din mismo, aminado rin sila na hindi solusyon. Pero hindi rin nila gini-give up. Dapat din magkaroon talaga ng mawala yung mismatch. Kumbaga maging pantay yung military or ano ba nila doon sa mismong lugar para mapanatili daw yung kapayapaan. Pero hindi, kumbaga hindi nila nakikita na lalala, no, yung military threats doon sa lugar. Kasi nga meron din palang epekto sa kanilang ekonomiya itong South China Sea kung maging magulo. Kabilang din sila sa anong
kasi one-third of global trade passed through the South China Sea and Mar. So kung magkakaroon ng disruption dyan at magkakaroon niya ng conflict, di madidisrupt ang trade mo. Hindi lang ang Asia Pacific ang apektado dyan, buong mundo. And even the United States is affected. Kasi yung trade, ang lahat ng karamihan ng goods and trade ng China will pass through South China Sea going to different direction, different countries, different continents. So alam na, well, under Trump, given he is really a businessman in terms of mindset, alam niya na kapag may nangyari dyan sa South China Sea, apektado din ang United States. And the United States will not benefit from anything na may military escalation dyan. Kaya, ang sinasabi nga niya, dapat ma-maintain kung ano ang dapat na sitwasyon, well, the relative peace ng South China Sea. Ngunit, kung titignan mo sa National Security Strategy na document, 30 times ata na mention ang Taiwan. Precisely because Taiwan is really the very sensitive flashpoint in Asia Pacific and it's a very sensitive issue as far as China is concerned. Pero maganda lang dyan sa National Security Strategy ng United States, it affirms that it will not attempt to change the status of the Taiwan Strait, and in many ways it's also an indication that they recognize that Taiwan is a part of China because it is really a part of China. So in that sense, may affirmation ka. Though kumakabig ang United States saying na, it's also important for us to maintain some kind of military defense in Taiwan in terms of supplying, because they earn money from supplying arms and selling arms. And one of the biggest buyer of the United States when you talk about arms is Taiwan. So may ganun silang, they also package it in that way. Pero ang pinaka-importante lang siguro doon is when that document said that we will not change the status quo, we will not attempt anything to change the status quo of the Taiwan Strait, which is an indication na ayaw nila ng gulo under Trump. Sinabi din naman kasi ni Trump sa isang interview niya, sabi ni Trump na nag-usap sila daw ni President Xi and nothing will happen in the Taiwan Strait as far as he is the president of the United States. So yun ang sabi niya, na hanggang siya pa rin ang presidente, walang gulo na mangyayari dyan in a sense na military escalation as far as he is concerned. So ibig sabihin, he knows I think Trump understand the sensitivity of the situation and the sensitivity of the Taiwan issue as far as China is concerned. At alam mo, si Trump, he really wants to have a very good relation with China. How many times did he say na President Xi and I are friends and I like President Xi, we have good relation with China and things like this. So I think Trump is trying his best to recalibrate good relation with China and to have a warm relation with China. I can see the effort. Pero ang crucial kasi niyan, 2 years na lang si Trump sa kanyang position as president. Ang wish ko lang is when he vacates his position and someone assume presidency after Trump, will follow the same kind of trajectory. Na alam mo yun, trying to maintain relative peace in the region, especially in the Asia Pacific region, and don't rock the boat, especially when you talk about the Taiwan Strait and even the South China Sea. So ibig sabihin, we will be spared from any kind of military escalation. Pero hindi natin alam. Kasi under Trump, I can see na medyo, relatively speaking, there is such a thing as stability. May stability do. Hindi naman, pero you have to remember, maraming ang political establishment ng United States are composed of many many people from different political backgrounds. May mga tinatawag kang neocons din sa United States who are always very hawkish when you talk about China. So very difficult then actually ang position ni Trump because he needs to face all of these neocons. And the neocons are also strong in the United States. So mahirap din ang position niya actually, especially when you talk about trying to establish what you call relative stability and recalibrated foreign policy na hindi siya masyadong militaristic ang dating, na unlike the Biden administration na very very aggressive and very militaristic, kaya nga nangyari ang Ukraine crisis mo. So yun yung nakikita ko sa sitwasyon ni Trump as president.
Bilang panghuli, dito tayo tutok sa Pilipinas. May kaugnayan dito nga po sa National Security Strategy. Kung kayo po ang masusunod, ano kaya ang mas mainam na magiging counter strategy natin dito? Kasi ito na yung halimbawa kung ito talaga yung susundin na estratehiya ng Estados Unidos, ano kaya ang gagawin? May conflict na tayo with China, may issue pa tayo sa korupsyon, medyo problematic din yung ating ekonomiya. Ano kaya ang mas mainam sa mga ganito pong klase ng sitwasyon na Prof pagdating po sa ating foreign policy usaping geopolitical po?
Okay, magandang tanong yan. Kung nakita natin, Trump, the United States, previously Biden administration very antagonistic against China and even allies of China like Russia and the rest, and under Trump recalibration. Ang sabi nga niya, 'di ba, during the time that the Bongbong Marcos was visiting the Oval Office of in the United States, kaharap niya si Trump, 'di ba? Anong sabi ni Trump sa kanya? We have good relation with China. Why don't you have good relation with China too? 'Di ba? So if you ask me, given the national security strategy of Trump administration, and if you look at how Trump is trying to recalibrate its relation with the Chinese, I think we should do the same. Because at the moment, our relationship with China diplomatically and politically, even military-wise, is not really good. These are not good relationship at the moment. So sa akin, and then you are suffering from a lot of things domestically, and one of that is economic. Ang foreign direct investment mo mababa, wala ka masyadong infrastructure project na gumagalaw, tourism mo mababa, wala nga zero, kulang na lang maging zero ang turismo natin kasi walang pumupunta na turismo, especially the Chinese, wala tayong Chinese tourist masyado. So ang dami mong problema, tas may massive corruption in government ka pa. So if I am on, like for example, if I can only make an advice or I'll be in the shoes of, let us say, Bongbong Marcos, I think what I would do is recalibrate relationship with China. Try to, recalibrate in a sense that you approach. Let's talk, let's mend. Try to see kung saan tayo pwedeng maayos ulit ang relationship natin. And especially on the South China Sea, try to, stabilize the situation there. Don't escalate. Talk, negotiate, and then probably ask for some kind of economic help, infrastructure, trade, tourism, and all that. If that's the case, if you ask me. Pero ang problema kasi at the moment, even if President Marcos Jr. will do that, trying to follow the footstep of his patron, which is the United States. It's really his patron at the moment. Marcos Jr. is backed up still by the United States. That's why he stays in office still. So, pero ang problema ni Marcos Jr. is ganito. Even if he would do these things, trying to follow the footstep of Trump, recalibration of relationship with China, the approach in the South China Sea na maging more stable siya, hindi yung belligerent ang approach ni Marcos Jr. dyan, and all that. Ang problema kasi ganito, the trust, wala nang trust sa kanya, I think, ang mga Chinese. Yun ang problema kasi ang trust sa kanya, yung political capital niya, sa China, zero na. Yun yung sinasabi ko Yun ang pinakamalaking pagkakamali ni BBM. Kasi ang taas-taas ng political capital, the first year of his presidency, the first few months of his presidency, ang taas ng kanyang political capital as far as China is concerned. well-regard siya. Actually, ang pamilya niya, ang tatay niya, ang nanay niya, at siya. And they were so happy actually when he became the president. So tapos you betrayed President Xi and you betrayed China by, so many things. Especially when you talk about, trying, parang throwing away the independent foreign policy of Duterte and having that so much leaning to the United States, compromising the relationship between China and the Philippines. So all of these things happen and it's still happening at the moment. So kahit mag-recalibrate siya ng kanyang foreign policy, gawa niya ng paraan na i-follow ang footstep na ginagawa right now ni Trump, trying to have warmer relation with China, the United States. That is so difficult for BBM, precisely because wala na siyang political capital as far as China is concerned. Wala na rin siyang trust. No one trusts him. Even the region does not trust him anymore. So especially China, kasi yun ang kanyang ginawa niyang, he betrayed President Xi Jinping and even China as a whole. So, yun yung pinakamahirap na posisyon ni BBM at the moment.
Opo.
So, sabi ko nga, sinayang niya ang political capital niya. Kung sana ang ginawa niya, he just followed the independent foreign policy of President Duterte, try to fine-tune it, have a balanced relationship between the two superpowers, United States and China. I think he will be in a better position when you talk about foreign policy in relation to ASEAN and in relation to the region. You need to remember ASEAN states are very close to China because that is their number one trading partner. You cannot compromise your number one trading partner.
Opo.
Even the Philippines, China is still our largest trading partner. So yun yung pinakamahirap na hindi na mangyayari yung sinasabi ko na advice or if I am in his shoes, precisely because sira na yung kanyang relationship as the president with that country is wala na So I think China is just waiting for a change of administration before it can before it can really have that solid or more courteous or more cordial relationship with the Philippines, and before it can again try to fund or extend resources to the Philippines in terms of trade, in terms of tourism, in terms of investment. Siguro naghihintay lang sila in a change in leadership. They're just so patient about it. Pero at this time, I don't see it under a BBM administration. So, yung advice ko, Admar, parang wala rin. Kasi wala na siyang political capital So, yun
Reserve mo na lang yung advice mo sa iba siguro, Prof. Sa ibang leader. Prof, maraming salamat sa iyong oras at panahon. Sa ulitin po, mag-ingat sila sa iyo. Mag-ingat po kayo, Prof.
Maraming salamat. Good night. God bless. Maraming salamat mga kababayan.
Maraming salamat si Professor Ana Malindog Uy, isang geopolitical analyst na pag-usapan natin po mga kapartner itong mga issue nga po doon sa Bocana Bridge, yung funded ng China, yung issue po ng 2025 national strategy po, security strategy ng Estados Unidos, implikasyon nito dito sa ating bansa.